You have dogs as well, Roland, so you
No,
know
mine
it.
are mine are mine are out. They're on search and rescue mission. Well, actually, search and rescue training.
Ah,
So
okay, okay.
the only little uh, conversation I had was with my son because he wanted to do some shake, in the blender. I said, "No, you can't." You're listening to What's Your Baseline, the show where we unpack the real world of enterprise architecture, process management, and everything that helps you build a smarter organization. We talk tools, techniques, and tough lessons learned, so you don't have to learn it the hard way. My name is Roland Wold. Grab a coffee. Let's go into it. Hey, JM. Oh, wait. We don't have JM here. Hey, Matusz, how you doing today?
I'm fine, Roland. I'm happy to help you and
Yeah.
happy for our first episode together. Or
Well, we had you on the show before, so you were sitting at the other side of the table, so to speak,
yeah,
But maybe for our audience, JM is a little bit unavailable for the next couple of episodes, but we obviously don't want to stop recording this wonderful podcast. So what we're going to do for the next foreseeable future is that I will have an very illustrative cast of co-hosts for the next couple of episodes. And since we're thinking we should start with something familiar, and I know, he needs to be on more podcasts, two is not enough. I invited Matusz today to be my co-host in the episode because, and that's the real reason, because we're going to talk about open source process automation.
thank you very much for the invitation, Roland. I'm happy to help you and
Sure.
happy to be in the third podcast, but only as co-host. So I would like to have JM here as soon as possible because I love both of you guys. But yeah, I'm happy to be here, and I'm happy for today's episode because it's definitely my area. So,
And I'm very happy to have Dan Funk here, who's the founder and CEO of an open source process automation tool called SpiffWorks. So welcome, Dan, my fellow Virginian, which is the other thing, we live in the same state.
Yeah.
Welcome to the show.
Yeah. Thanks so much for having me. Yeah, this is a blast. It's great to be here and talking to you and Matusz. And yeah, let's get going.
Maybe, Dan, we like to introduce you to our guests. So the typical questions, who are you? Why are you here? What's your claim to fame? Can you say a little bit about you so that our listeners know, okay, why did the guys invite Dan and what is your background?
Well, I'm really pleased to be here. Very, very grateful for you bringing me on the show. Gosh, I don't have a claim to fame. I have no fame to claim. But yeah, have really enjoyed building. Really enjoyed building out this kind of open source project, and I think we're getting a little traction kind of in Europe and South America and here in the States, which has been really fun. And yeah, it's nice to be a part of this kind of Python ecosystem and to see that sort of build in the same way that Camunda and Flowable kind of built that Java ecosystem. Other things about me that might be of interest are I founded a makerspace here in Stanton, which also has a lot of open hardware sort of side of the open source community, and have really enjoyed participating in that and building that stuff up. Yeah, I guess my license plate says open source, and I've had that if you ever driving around in Virginia, Roland, and you see like an open source, like a cheap open source car truck by with that license plate, that's me.
Well, so if you see a Jeep with Go Explore, don't run into me, but that's me.
Okay, all right, I will keep an eye out for you.
But Dan, till we start about you and your job and your open source philosophy, what is then outside of the work? Because I think that's really important for our guests as well. So where are you coming from? From the past, and what are you doing outside of the work? If there is some life outside of the work.
Yeah. I'm really looking forward to Thanksgiving coming up like soon, or probably past by the time this airs. But yeah, that'll be good.
Yeah.
Other things that I do, I build ships and bottles. That's one of the things that I do at the makerspace. We have some really good like resin printers that let you make like really, really tiny things. So I'll make like little figures for them. And I build them custom for like individual people that I really care about. So like one of them recently was Jim, and he's really into Marvel comic books and stuff. So all the people on his ships are little, it's the Incredible Hulk is there, like, doing stuff. And yeah, I'm making a new one for a friend, Aaron, and that one's going to have a monster that's kind of under the water with like, a little like little thing sticking up that looks like a palm tree, and the ship is sailing towards it. But if you tilt the bottle, you can kind of see it. So that's one of the projects.
But is it like inside of the wine bottle? So how can I imagine it? It's like this
Yeah.
the ship in the bottle.
Yeah, it's a ship in a bottle. So you
That's
build it
crazy.
outside. The trick is you build it outside. So this is kind of like going to be like the ship that's kind of going in, and then the masts and everything, like it all folds down, and then you stick it in the throat of the bottle, and you pull these strings, and it all kind of like unfolds. And
yeah, so I mean, from the background, how the heck you get all of the stuff, through the small bottle? Because it's just like, it's like, what is the trick? If you can, explain it.
It's like, so the mass, like, so if you imagine like when this is ready to go in the bottle, I will cut it into slices. So it'll have just a very thin top slice that'll go in last. And on this top slice, there'll be a mast.
Yeah.
And that mast will have a tiny hinge down here. So the whole thing will fold down like that. And then the sails will wrap around the bottle. And then you slide it into the neck and you glue it into place. And then you pull the strings, and then the mast pulls back up and unfurls. And then you spend like the next 3 hours of your life in there with like tiny tweezers and stuff, trying to get everything to reposition so that it looks right.
How many bottles can you produce in a year? Sorry, Roland, but I
need
to know it.
One bottle in a year.
One bottle in a year.
Yeah, it's an enormously frustrating thing, right? So I take great joy in it, but like the second I become irritated, I just walk away. It's one of those things. I don't have to accomplish this. I'm not on anybody's time scale.
Yeah, because I was like, I was going to ask how difficult it is to convince you to create a what's your baseline bottle? but if it's one of a year, it's just like crazy, or
never ending project. But speaking of never ending projects, Dan, we obviously invited you for two reasons. One was, and speaking of delicate operations, one obviously is you're running SpiffWorks, as a project, and maybe the little add-on is it's an open source project. So let's switch to the topic at hand, and let's talk a little bit about open source software in general. We had an episode about open source, so I hope everybody knows what open source is. But the question is, how does one, in this case you, come to this and say, oh, not only do I like to contribute to an open source project, no, I want to start one. How did you get to that situation?
So I didn't start the open source project, or we didn't start it. That was started by Samuel Abels, I think right around 2010, and was originally designed to implement some workflow design principles that were a part of a research study that was going on in Europe. There was another couple of people that had come along after that and sort of added the ability to execute BPMN files, and that's really what we were interested in. And so we picked up that open source project and have developed it ever since. So we added and rewritten, I would say, like 90% of it, right? We've continued to rework and refine it and update it. But like anything, it's what makes for a great community or a great commons is like the joiners that come along afterwards more than the people that start it. I think like there's millions of dead open source projects out there that people have started, and that's often, almost always, there's some place that you can grab and start from.
Mateusz and I, we had the conversation about, with two other friends about, hey, should we start an open source BPM project? And Mateusz, I don't know if it's dead and we can announce it here, because it's dead and we never pulled it off, or if it's still on hiatus. But it's quite a bit of commitment. And I can see how people just step away, and then the maintainer is not there anymore, and it's some individual doing this. I think the challenge is to grow a team around it so that you as the individual are not the bottleneck of it. But how do you make, or how does SpiffWorks, the open source project, how did you get over that hump?
Did you get over that hump?
Oh yeah, that's another question.
I think it's a big hump. There's definitely lots of community out there around it and people who are investing time in it. And I think that's a pretty strong indicator that you've done something, right? There are people that you're not paying that think like, hey, this is worth my time and I'm going to add it, or companies that think this is valuable to us and we're going to build on top of it and support it. So I think that's probably the biggest indicator.
Yeah, and especially when you think about it, that basically everything that we do in computing today runs on open source. Linux servers, Apache web servers, all that stuff, except the little damn desktop that each and every one of us sees every day and has to work with the Windows and Mac OSs of the world.
Not me. I'm doing this on a Linux machine.
Okay.
Love it.
Okay.
Love it.
That's interesting. But then you was talking about open source and how you love it. Why? So what does open source mean to you? Because I mean that's one of the biggest questions, or?
Yeah, I guess. So that started, way back in the late 90s, early 2000s when I got my first software development job. God, it makes me feel very old. There, I was doing Visual Basic. It was a horrible, horrible language. And everything all these things that I ran into were like, I would hit a problem. There would be some issue the code didn't work. And I was like, why does the code not work? And I would go dig into the documentation and the documentation would say, no, this totally works. And all the documentation was provided by Microsoft. It was curated by Microsoft. The dialogues and conversation were managed by so they wouldn't tell you that there was a bug. And so you would just bang your head senselessly against this wall for hours and then just have to do it somewhere else or make this ugly kludge that I'd have to kludge up my beautiful code because of something that they had done. And all of that frustration, a friend of mine, Fred McDavid, joined the same company that I was working for at the time. And he was all into Linux. We had these big Unix servers there at the first company that I worked for. And that that gave me the opportunity to start trying out and doing Unix and Linux stuff. And I installed it on my desktop. And as soon as I did, Fred got access to the machine and started to run Xfish on it, which is this terrible program that it's not a screensaver or anything. It just makes fish swim across your screen as you're trying to do other stuff. And I had no idea why, and I didn't know how to shut it off. And I turned around, looked behind me, and Fred's over there rolling on the ground laughing because I'm so those were kind of initial moments that made me really enjoy open source and the crazy things that you could do. It was this Wild West kind of world where crazy stuff could happen. And it was open, right? If it was broken, you could complain to somebody and they would have to listen to you, in a way that just doesn't exist with corporate managed programming languages.
That's really interesting. But, then it's different to be part of the open source community and use it, and absolutely different to be on the other side and provide with some open source projects. So have you seen it now, from the perspective that you are providing open source project to basically to us, all others which can use it? How difficult is it for you?
You hear people complain about that stuff all the time. It is hard to build communities. That's what we were doing at the makerspace I talked about earlier. That's just a community building exercise. Does it suck to build communities? Absolutely, it sucks to build communities. People are unpredictable. They're volunteering their time. They're not always nice to you. They're not nice to you because they're coming from, some weird perspective. But you put all this, I did all of this for free. Don't yell at me about this. The same was true there. But I think when I pause about it, every time I've been confronted by that, it's always been, I am getting way more out of this than I would be spending that time in any other place. So
Yeah.
this
So
is what I'll
so
do.
you can stand the occasional RTFM comment.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, totally. And dish them out sometimes too, right?
I'm pretty sure in many cases that's the appropriate answer. And for those of you who don't know what that means, just go to Urban Dictionary and you will find it out. But maybe to switch topics a little bit, which is not really 100%, but open source is great. Why BPM? Why process automation? So you could have written the 10 millionth database administration tool, the 7 millionth text editor on Linux, whatever that is. How did you come to the topic of process and said, oh, this is a project that I like to be part of?
I think it's almost exactly the same justification for open source. I wanted, I didn't like Visual Basic because the documentation wasn't there. I didn't know what the rules were. I'm playing by somebody else's game, but I don't know what the rules are to the game. The same goes for open standards, right? If I can build to an open standard, I know what the rules of the game are. And the open standard around business process management and business process automation is BPMN. And so that's what we went with. We could have invented our own proprietary way of doing it, but we would have missed out on that. And when you miss out on something from the commons like that, like an open standard, you miss out on all of the past research that went into doing that thing, right? There's hundreds of papers on BPM. People are still studying BPMN. There's papers getting published every year on how do you do this better? How can we automate that? Could AIs generate these things? All of that is happening without me putting effort and energy into doing it. So in a way, our project and the work that we do gets to capitalize on the effort of so many other people.
Yeah, and we spoke a couple of weeks ago, we spoke about, is there a need for a BPMN 3 standard, which I hope I will see in my lifetime, but obviously the last 14 years, nothing has happened, but that's a separate
funny.
conversation.
That's funny. I have to stop you, Ron, because that's funny. I
Oh.
was really looking for the workflow patterns you've described then, and that's exactly the time where the BPMN was or the first engines was created. So that was the same initiative.
Sure.
Yeah, that was the same initiative, and they was creating BPMN in that time. And the first engines, I think, are there. So even your first contribution in your open source project was from the time. So it was just trying all of the patterns which was created there, and even there's one of the from the organizer of this initiative was Will van der Aert, and I would just he'll go for the website because he's that young there, or so it's 12 years ago or something like that. It's really funny.
Yeah, it's the Workflow Management Coalition, and little announcement when you see my first training coming out, the 7 millionth introduction into BPMN. And I do have a slide of the timeline there. And that Workflow Management Coalition is actually disbanded for a couple of years now. Literally an open project that said, we accomplished what we want to accomplish, and they didn't stick with it, which is, I think, great. There's too many people sticking to their chairs and positions anyways. But yeah, I agree. So I read a white paper written by Stephen White from IBM. I don't know if he's still with IBM, but he was obviously one of the driving forces behind the standard that compared the workflow patterns in BPMN with those in UML, which I also thought, oh, interesting, because a lot of people don't know that in the preamble of UML, it says it's a process description language, So either way, I think it's important because that takes out the interpretation, how do I do things? And I think that's, especially when it comes to automation, it's great if you can agree on, oh yeah, we go left or we go right, and that's the way how to do it.
But still, talking about the BPMN and open source projects, then there are a couple of others. So I mean, it is all the time, the question: am I going to create a new one? So what was the decision, to work on this project for you? I mean, why?
it's a very valid question, right? Like there are thousands, probably thousands of workflow engines out there.
Yeah.
So I think like that's a big decision. I think looking and finding an open source project that was already there and then getting the mandate from the University of Virginia, where we were doing the work initially, to do something with Python, because they were really trying to shift. They have lots of people at the University of Virginia that are writing Python. They're building more infrastructure in that language. So they were really looking for something that would work in that vein. I approached them and said, hey, you've got JBPMN and Camunda and like these other major companies that are out there doing this in Java. Would you like us to do this in Java? And the answer was no, please don't do this in Java.
Oh.
Absolutely love it. So I was really expecting the answer, but to know it from you is better.
Well, but that might be a nice segue into a little break, because I like to focus in our second segment more about SpiffWorks and how that all came to be. And I don't want to spoil it, obviously, before we have enough time to go with that. But to our audience who's currently listening or watching our shenanigans here, what are your experience with open source? Is it like the old XKCD comic? And I need to find it to put it in the show notes. Where you see the modern infrastructure on top of it, and you see it like a tower, and some of them say, "Oh yeah, it's a little Excel spreadsheet that holds that thing completely up." So it's the open source technology, maybe instead of the Excel, that keeps things running. So what are your experience with that? Please let us know. Do you think about having open source in your technology stack? We'll leave you for a moment and we'll see each other in the second segment.
So welcome back. Dan, we was talking about you, your background, your passion for open source, and why you are in the project. But the most important thing for me is to know more about your project, because as you have talked, I was in the past working with activity Camunda Flowable, and I'm definitely passionate in everything what's around BPMN and process engines. So I would like to know more about Spiff workflow. Why have you decided to use Python, and what's your vision? So maybe you can take us on your vision board.
Yeah, I think I probably have backed into this, right? I think the real justification was somebody was willing to pay me money to do this in Python, and that's why I did it in Python. But
there are worse reasons than that, Dan.
Yeah, I know. But I think there's some real interesting aspects to Python that have a profound impact on BPMN. And I think it's all like kind of grounded in literate programming, which was this concept that was put forward with Donald Kuntz, I think, like back in the 80s or 90s or something. But it's like this idea that ultimately produced Jupyter Notebooks, and Jupyter Notebooks kind of revolutionized how we do data analytics and data processing. And here's suddenly like all of these people who were not previously able to, who would not previously have written a whole bunch of code, were mainly like interested in looking at data and finding patterns in that data, could now like use this tool and write this code that would like do stuff and could understand it and visualize it and process it. So Jupyter Notebooks, really like in a huge way revolutionized the way we do data processing. And that is really kind of literate programming, this ability to like, you're not like commenting in the code, you're telling a story, and the code is a part of telling that story. And when you tell that story with code, it becomes a whole lot more real, right? If you can say it and codify it, that it is logically sound. And I think that is real power. And you take that and you apply that to BPMN, and I think you get the same benefit. Here is a language that's easy to learn and easy to use and easy to read. And you combine that with this diagramming tool, then, and you say like, yeah, I drew this flow chart out, but it's not just a flow chart. It actually connects to other systems. It makes decisions. It goes down specific gateways. I know this thing is sound and real and true.
From that perspective, Python is more or less tool for data engineers, also a lot more in that area. How big is the acceptance for low code? I mean, BPMN is low code, so you're starting to drawing the diagrams, so it's a different area, and so from that side, it would be just interesting how your audience, so your Python programmers, are reacting to your to the solution, because it's like not code, but a drawing.
It is, and I struggled with that one a lot as well. It's a really good question. I can't sell this to Python programmers by telling them, hey, now you can draw your code. They're definitely like, the hell with all that. I'm just going to write the code.
Yeah, they can even generate it, or no?
Yeah, you can't, but like, I didn't see, that feels like an evolutionary dead end to me.
Yeah.
What does make sense is, hey, are you tired of people coming to you over and over and over again, giving you new business rules or changing the direction of something? And what if you could pull that bureaucracy out of your code and let someone else deal with that? There's lots of people who like dealing with bureaucracy. Let them handle it. Let them handle those weird business rules. Let the salespeople change their strategies all the time. Get that out of your code and somewhere else.
Yeah, I find it so interesting because obviously I'm representing the business view here, right? When I think about automation, I would love to see everything in diagrams. I would love to draw a new arrow from box 1 to box 2, and magically, I've changed the sequence flow of my process, so that I don't have to wait for the nerds, to do those changes. So Dan, you said it like, oh yeah, every programmer will I don't know if you said will laugh about it or shakes their head, Who's the audience, right? And think about SpiffWorks now, who's the audience for the automation? Is it the business people, who you enable by using BPMN diagrams to do this? Or is it the implementer, the people writing the code in the backend? And maybe if you extrapolate this, is that the way that it should stay going forward? Or do you see more the, I don't know, model to execute, or however you want to call this, the visual programming as a path going forward?
So I participated in this incubator earlier in the year, like a startup incubator. And what they kept asking me over and over again, these very smart, very kind people, is, Dan, you don't have an ideal customer profile, which is kind of what you're asking. Well, what is your ideal customer
Yeah, the
profile? Who are you
personas,
selling
yeah.
this software to? I think it is a really good communication tool, which means we're not selling it to the business people and we're not selling it to the software engineers. We're trying to sell it to those people who are trying to hold those two groups together and reduce the stress and of that interaction, because and that's got you both have to feel that, right? I have felt that my whole career. That's the part of my job that sucks, is trying to deal with the people who don't see the world the same way I do. And how do we create a better means of communicating when things get highly technical and extremely detailed? And so it's that problem that I think we need to fix, and that I'm hoping this would help fix.
I get it. Being the translator, I played that role once or twice in the past, try to get people at the same table. But I think there's also, and maybe that's related and maybe it isn't, I don't know. When you implement something, you obviously need a level of detail that typical business people don't bring to the table. It's just like that, just make it happen, and they just hyperventilate, How do you deal with that?
I think so it's a dream right? I'm definitely talking aspirational here.
Mm-hmm.
But the idea is like, if you can see it run, if you're forced to look at it function, it gives you a stress point that's not just the other person. You
Mm-hmm.
can take the problem that you're trying to face and you can make it something concrete that both your engineers and your business people can look at and understand to a certain extent and say, I see the problem. It's not you. It is the fact that we tried to do this thing and this thing and this other thing. And oh, I see you have this other problem here you're trying to deal with. And it's these 4 things that are causing the conflict.
Mm-hmm.
But everything you are explaining, it's similar to all other open source tools I know till now. I think you are really targeting the gap which is there as soon as you have company, automating processes. So you have these communicators, and they doesn't want to. So they're using Python more than Java. So they doesn't want to use Java engines. And then the solution patterns are pretty complex. So from that side, I think you are targeting pretty good audience, which I would not underestimate, because those people are there. But my question would be, now in 5 years, where you want to evolve? So are you going to go more in the business area with low code, no code? Are you going to go more in the citizen developer area, enabling more people to be able to program with processes? Or how are you going to evolve? So what are your current plans?
Boy, never has 5 years of time been more hard to predict than the next 5 years.
I think.
It's all our AI overlords will do that for you, Dan. You're just sitting in your hammock and things happen automatically.
But now you can wish it, so just make your wish.
I think, so like, I guess I'm pinning my hopes on this idea that we'll get, people will become more technical over time, not less. That the big evolution that we saw with literate programming and with Jupyter notebooks, and that sort of data engineering field, maybe that could happen to the business field too. So that you get these business users that are like, Python, sure. I'm not a programmer, but I can totally write some Python. I can stitch this workflow together. I can do this thing. It's definitely not no code, and I don't think it's low code. I think it's more literate programming, and I could see that being a potential route to the next 5 years.
Okay.
Well, I find that interesting because I'm dabbling around with process mining and all those things, and when I was working for one of the vendors, we said, okay, Mr. Klein, it's your thing how you do your data pipeline. We don't want to prescribe it to you, but we've seen people struggling with that, and we were using Jupyter notebooks for this, so there was that gap of the business people to be able to translate this. And that's just one. Other tools do have some SQL language in that tool built in to create. It's just like a very big hurdle, right, that they have to overcome. And we did the recommendation to use a graphical data modeling tool, if I might say, NIME, one of my favorite tools to play with, to solve that. To say, okay, hey, you can stitch together your little nodes in your workflow, and it has little traffic lights that tell you that you've done it correctly, that little snippet of transformation that you just wanted to do. And I think the average business person really doesn't care so much how the tool is written. And that will be one of my questions. Does it really matter if it's Python or if it's Java or any other language? I think the business people want to have something they can understand. And I think that's one of the reasons why the BPMN notation became so popular, because now you could see it. Oh yeah, if I do this, then I go here or I go here. So maybe besides my little rant here, the question behind this, because I actually disagree with you, Dan. I hope that it becomes less technical, right, than more technical. But then the second question is, does it really matter which language you write the damn thing if it's less technical? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I guess I do think that if you remove code and
Hmm.
it's no longer necessary, AI relieves us of that, and BPMN and other tools relieve us of that, then yes, then the code is less useful. Um, and it becomes less important what it's written in, and maybe that language should be more geared towards engineers, and Java is a pre-engineer geared language. It's great for writing very large complex systems. I guess I'm not betting on that. I
Hmm.
would bet that AI does not solve that problem, that
Uh-huh.
we continue to need to write code, that more people need to be able to write that software and be able to read it and understand it. And if that becomes the truth, then you need a language that is easy for people to learn. It's easy to read. You don't need a CS degree in order to get engaged in it.
Hmm.
And there, I think there's a strong argument for Python being easy to read and easy to engage with and easy to understand. And Java and programming languages like it, they're very object oriented. That is a very powerful tool to write complex systems, but it takes time. You need a class on what classes are. You've got to understand all of these like core principles of how things work in those languages before you can make good use of them.
Yeah, I agree. My younger son, he's a freshman at George Mason, and he's studying systems engineering, and one of his classes is right about that. And they have whatever the Pythons for beginners class. They have a little motherboard, and they turn on little lights on it. And then we're sitting here on Saturdays when he's doing his homework, and it's like, oh yeah, how does that work? And he and I look at it and say, oh no, that's that function. You need to call that function first. And then the light turns on, or whatever magic he has to do there. I agree. It's easy to understand. Well,
Have you
easy-ish
seen,
to understand.
this is a great segue into like, have you seen Sketch? Did your kids play with Sketch at all early on?
No, no.
Great thing out of MIT. It has little visual components to it, and you stack so you have a loop, and it's like this loop thing comes in like,
It's like graphical
and
programming.
you can
Yeah.
stick things inside of it, and it causes those things to loop around.
Oh,
It's a great tool for like getting those core programming concepts across to kids.
Yeah.
Out
well,
of MIT.
yeah, I will
Um,
let him know.
okay, all right.
It's for less younger people, Roland.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's my
yeah.
level.
It's
Matters, that's my level,
I was just like trying to ask Roland, are you going to learn Python now? But I think it's definitely important which language you have, because if you take a look at the BPMN solutions, some kind of architect is evolved, hopefully. So
Uh-huh.
he picked the tool which is suiting to your enterprise architecture. And if your enterprise architecture is based on Python solutions whatsoever, because you have a lot of Python programmers, then Java solution is just not really passing there that well. Or so it's like even from this perspective, you can upgrade it, that you have solutions where you can much more do with it, as I can do with my Java knowledge, or because I can read how the engine is implemented. It's open source, so Dance engine is open source as well. You can maybe fix it, contribute there. And if you are just like Python programmer, you cannot really contribute to Java projects if you doesn't want to learn all of the other stuff. So I do like the ideas to have new things. I would just like ask if the Python is it, or it should be Go or Rust or something really new and hype. But I like it so. But then let us switch to next chapter, and that would be business. So open source projects are insanely difficult. I've got this question in the past: if I am going to, do some kind of open source, tool or whatever, and I've seen the teams behind Camunda and Flowbill in the past and behind activity. That's crazy difficult, a lot of effort and everything. Did you build some kind of business around your open source thing, because you need to earn money, or?
Yeah. I need to earn money. And so does all the other people that are involved on the project with me. So there's a team of 6 of us that are all working on this, and mainly doing most of, I would say, presently like 100% of our income comes from consulting with companies on adopting the open source code base, and we're also trying to build a few maybe proprietary chunks around it that we could license to people. Just finding some way to sustain the open source project and ourselves as we continue to work on it. But yeah, I think open source projects are hard, but I think first and foremost, you have to kind of admit running a company is hard. All companies are hard. Restaurants are really hard, right? It's just a difficult thing to do. People and economies, and there's like, you're just dealing with a whole bunch of things that are super unpredictable.
Yeah, but it's even much more harder to build an open source company because all of your customers, even contributors which are using your tool, are just somehow evading that you push hundreds of features every month and, just waiting for the open source solution. Or
there's some of that. At the same time, we wouldn't have any of the contacts and contracts. Like, so many of our contracts are in Europe and Brazil. They would not know.
Using your tool.
I'm a 6-person company in Virginia. There's no reason for these people to know who I am. They don't know and like me personally or know about they know because it's open source, right? We put it out there and they can find it.
If you can tell it, how many implementations did you have? So how many customers, so real customers, not just playing, but customer solutions, that they are using it, you have around the world? So is it like 100 companies using it for the solutions, or how many?
That is so if you go read that article out of Harvard, they talk about it's really difficult. They had to go to a lot of trouble to figure out who's using the open source projects to even begin to calculate what their value is worth. I don't know.
You don't know.
There's no good way to tell.
Yeah, I guess you have the proxies, the Git forks or the downloads, but that's still matters. That could be whatever, the nerd in the closet who just wants to play with something,
Yeah.
You never know.
It is more likely. So I think if you look at we're getting close to 2,000 stars on GitHub, and several, I don't know, hundreds of forks. I think it is not inconceivable that you could multiply that number by 1,000 or 10,000 and start to get at the number of people who have interacted with the project.
From an end user perspective. Oh yeah, for sure.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then, from that, you can kind of start to extrapolate out of what footprints there.
Let's go back to the business part of it, because I'm really interested. As you know, Martin and I were talking about this. How do we make this a sustainable thing? Right, because it's great that you have the idea and you have your mission and you say, oh, it needs to be process automation for the masses in an easy to learn language. It doesn't help if you don't survive, and I'm not talking about being able to buy the regular bag of dog food for your dog. I'm literally talking about, okay, you need infrastructure, you need customer service, you need training, you need whatever, everything that's related to the end user and setting up that structure. And yes, obviously, food for the kids and the dogs is also appreciated. But what effort is that to build that infrastructure, to be able to build a sustainable project that then hopefully, and obviously you still have another 30, 40 years to work when I look at your young face, that will sustain
30 to
that
40
will
is
sustain
pretty
it.
crazy.
Yeah. Really hope I'm not doing this in 30 years.
40, there was 30
40,
to 40
yeah.
then.
No,
I want to give some range,
vastly different conversation in 40 years.
In your bed, being 100 years old, like, push that pixel, it sucks. No, but in all seriousness, how do you build up and sustain everything that goes around it? And I'm not necessarily talking about business, but that's part of it. But how do you make a project sustainable so that it will survive and not be one of those 7 million abandoned projects that live out there?
Yeah. I mean, some of it, that is called the tragedy of the commons, right? And gosh, what was that guy? Eleanor Ostrom wrote this. What won the Pulitzer or the Nobel Prize in economics for studying how do you solve this issue? because it's not just about like it definitely is about open source, right? Our entire modern software industry is built on top of open source software without question. Google and Amazon and Facebook, all those people are built on top of this, on top of the structure. So there's this commons, and how do you support it? I think it is possible to support it. I don't think that we are necessarily like required to fail because we built on top of this thing. We just have to find ways to finance it. And people shouldn't suffer for doing that, right?
Oh,
You should be
sure.
able
Yeah,
to
yeah.
you should be able to make those contributions and still live comfortably in society and be able to support it. I think you're right. Like there's like thinking from a company standpoint, how do you build around that? And I think like my analogy would be it's like, it's like we're building a little town. And you could build like right now, like what we are castles. We're in the dark ages and we have a bunch of castles, and these castles, these giant corporations build giant moats around them to protect them and their interests from anybody in getting in. But I think it'd be far better for us to think about it as a city. And in a city, you need open roads. You need that gate. You need that gate wide open. You need to build well outside those city walls to grow and thrive. And you do that. You do that through shared infrastructure. And this open source software is nothing other than shared infrastructure. And then I can build my little company because I don't want to be Google or Amazon or Facebook. I would like to be my dad. I would like to run a successful small business and enjoy that and have good connections with the people that are around me. And if there's good water supply in the city, then I can connect to that water supply and I can run my business. And rather than building a moat, I put a lock on my door, right? I do some proprietary stuff that only you can get at my store so that I can, build a business and we can have a free economy. But I don't know the water supply because I shouldn't.
Yeah, yeah. So to me, well, one of the thoughts that I had is like, is it comparable to say the music industry? You provide the song, but you make your money with T-shirt sales and concerts and whatever Taylor Swift does with her fans. Is that the model, the business model going forward for open source? And I'm not talking about T-shirts. Well, maybe I do, but what? How do you see the business model for open source projects so that they can survive?
Oh gosh, I think we as a society have to like value them, right? We value water supply.
Hmm.
Like that's a big deal. And so we have legislation around it, and people get, there's like ways to tax for it, and that establishes that entity and it's maintained. I think something like that needs to happen for open source. What happens now is AWS goes and grabs every decent open source project and has built a company around serving that up to other people. And they're just parasitic on top
Hmm.
of what is something vastly larger than what Amazon is and could ever hope to be. Right. So rather than doing that, let's flip it around and have Amazon and AWS finance these open source projects, and other companies that are depending on it finance these projects, so that is a sustainable economy. Do they continue to get bigger and bigger and bigger? No. We get more companies doing more things with more diversity and like better stuff.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Well, don't want to pick on any of those vendors you mentioned.
I
The
do.
Googles and Amazons and Metas of the world. Um, I think I found it interesting. Well, and now I'm a little bit torn. As a half German and half American. What our current administration here is doing is obviously actively uninviting others to play ball. Right. So when I look at, for example, what the European Union does and all the conversations around digital sovereignty and all those things, I guess that's a big driver. If I was Matusz living in Munich, I would start thinking about infrastructure companies. What is the European alternative to an AWS? What's the European alternative to a GitHub that's owned by Microsoft? I see the Proton guys in Switzerland doing some nice things around this. But I think it's relatively small. So I would see more that as an ally for building these things, and getting grants and all those things.
it's because all of these companies are just like too big, as Dan has told, or so that companies are pretty huge and they are owning almost everything. So from that perspective, I like the idea, then that we have to find some way how to support open source projects more. It's like Wikipedia, or they have something like support us or whatever. And that's definitely sad, because there are a lot of open source tools which died, and they died because of having only people and no business model behind it. Not even something like, you can support us, please, do this or whatever. Or there are open source tool like Dan has, that he has company behind it which can pay it, or so you are the only payer there. So that, I think we definitely have a big gap there to find out how we can support open source solutions in the future, where companies which are getting money for the solutions build on this open source, maybe give something for them as well. Or and I will take a metaphor of the sport guys. If you are training some kind of footballer or whatever, or ice hockey player, or because you are in the US, then the team or the academy which has built him get a bit of money as soon as he's transferred to big club, and that maybe should be somehow passed to the open source as well, that these projects can be supported.
Yeah, to stick with that analogy, or you do it like whatever the NFL does.
Yeah.
Here you have a salary cap. To have
Okay.
an equal playing field in there, which I actually don't see. But
we don't
before
have
we
any
get into
solutions
those,
yet, so.
Oh yeah. But this is a good hook, and I'm looking at our little clock here, So we're I don't say we're past our prime, but we're getting to the end of the show. But I'd like to do a little break again, because I'm curious how many people in our audience have thought about supporting an open source project, or how many people in our audience already even know that they're relying on open source. Just think about your car. The radio in your car most likely runs on some Linux flavor. The steering systems of the electronics in your car most likely run on some open source project, in all those things. So we'll leave you alone for a couple of minutes, and then we have the solution for all of the problems of the world when we come back after this little break.
Love won't let you down, won't let you down. Yeah, hey, I need your love won't let you down. Hey, I need your love won't let you down, won't let you down.
Hello guys, welcome back. So it was an amazing time, almost 1 hour with you Dan. We have learned a lot about open source projects, about why open source is important, about tools and BPMN process engines in open source. And I do like that idea that you have created a Python-based process engine, where I think you definitely have single selling point, because I didn't know any other open source Python engine. We can do something for you to help you build your community. So provide us, please, with more information, how we can support you, where we can find you, and how people maybe can contribute with on your project. So then, stage is yours.
Okay. All right. Well, if you want to find us, you can go to spiff.works. That's not spiffworks.com, just spiff.works. Works is like the end thing. And there you can kind of read about what we're doing. There's a schedule a demo link. So if you click that, it will let you book a meeting with me, and I can sit down and show you everything that we do. There's also links to go check us out. We have a playground that you can use right now to try stuff out. And we'll soon be publishing a bunch of links that will allow you to run the whole thing inside of a browser window. So you can just pop it up and make modifications and run it right there in your browser without ever connecting really to any system. Very excited about that work. But like just to kind of clarify why you might want to do that, we're really in the business of reducing the opacity of technology and improving the communication between people. So if your job is to help make your company communicate better, to clarify what's going on, or to get a high level kind of thin layer view of like what's going on in your company. Why are things slowing down between this department and this department, or this development team and this software system? You can figure that stuff out with our tool.
And of course, people can reach you on LinkedIn and all those other
Absolutely.
places, like I did, But having said that, obviously, we're also on LinkedIn. For those of you who listen and haven't noticed it, there's obviously the What's Your Baseline page. And that is the nice segue, obviously, to ask you to do us a favor. All the usual stuff, subscribe, like, and all those blah, blah. But maybe more importantly, if you could tell 5 of your best friends about the little podcast that would be very much appreciated. And we will be forever grateful for your little favor that you did us. Having said that, you obviously find the show notes on what'syourbaseline.com. This will be episode 103. So it's what'syourbaseline.com/episode 103. No blanks and whatever in there. And having said that, I've been Roland Volt.
I've been Dan Funk.
And I am Martusz Mahler.
And we'll see you in the next one.